All right, so another deep dive. This time, you sent this stuff over this YouTube video transcript and then like an art analysis, and they're both about, well, this lithograph called Venetia, I think is how you say it. But yeah, it really got me thinking about how like art connects to bigger ideas. You know what I mean? And in this case, we're going to look at, how it ties into Zen philosophy. I'm super interested in this and the I Ching and really what they both have to say about, well, dealing with chaos and uncertainty in life,
Yeah, it's super fascinating. It is to see how like a visual piece can become like this gateway to these big concepts.
Yeah, for sure. And Venezia, I mean, it's not like a typical landscape, is it? It's like, I don't know, it's this whirlwind of lines, so dense, so swirling, almost like the artist, like, I don't know, dipped a brush in ink and just let it dance across the page wildly, No subject, no focal point, just, I don't know, pure energy.
And the lack of that defined subject, I think, is exactly what kind of draws us in. It's like looking at, I don't know, like a rough sea under a stormy sky. So you see the movement, the power, but you just can't grasp it, It's that, I think, ungraspableness that makes it so compelling.
Yeah, I see that. And speaking of grasping, I was looking at the analysis and they were talking about how the line work creates depth and movement. Like the lines bunch together in some areas, so it creates almost a sense of solidity, right? And then in others, it thins out and leaves these open spaces. I don't know, it's like breathing, inhale, exhale.
That's such a good observation. And it leads like really perfectly into, I think, how this piece reflects Zen philosophy, because then it emphasizes, finding that harmony within the chaos, right? And recognizing that everything's connected. And Venezia visually echoes that with these like seemingly chaotic lines. But then if you really look closer, you see this rhythm, this flow. It's like a visual representation of how stillness can exist within constant change. You know what I mean?
So it's not just about chaos then. It's more about the balance between the chaos and the stillness.
Exactly, yeah. And it ties into this concept of mu, or emptiness, in Zen. So the lithograph doesn't give us these like concrete forms to, I don't know, cling to, which I think can be kind of unsettling. But that emptiness, that lack of definition, it forces us to confront, I think, like our own desire to impose meaning, to control the narrative, So it's almost like an invitation to just let go, to approach the piece, maybe life itself, with like a beginner's mind.
That's a powerful idea, just letting go of that need to define everything. And speaking of letting go, the YouTube transcript also brought up this connection to the I Ching. It mentioned hexagram 3, difficulty at the beginning, and how it kind of resonates with the lithographs, that initial chaotic appearance.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. The I Ching, the book of changes, it has like all this wisdom, right, about constant change and this interplay between yin and yang. And hexagram 3, it reminds us that challenges, they're inherent to any beginning. Like these swirling lines of Venezia, they could be seen as representing that initial difficulty, that sense of being overwhelmed by the unknown. But it's within like that very difficulty, that chaos, that the potential for growth lies. Just like in the I Ching, where every hexagram, it represents a stage in this like constantly evolving cycle.
Okay, so we've got this visual representation of chaos, the Zen concept of finding stillness within that chaos. And now the I Ching's perspective on like difficulty being a necessary part of the journey. It's starting to connect in a really interesting way.
What's so fascinating here is how the lithograph, it doesn't shy away from that like initial chaotic state. It almost like celebrates it, suggesting that it's an essential part of like the creative process of life itself,
Thinking about those swirling lines, it kind of reminds me of Asian calligraphy, how the brushstrokes seem to capture, I don't know, both his energy and grace, even in like the most abstract forms. Could that be another layer of influence here, do you think?
Absolutely. It's entirely possible the artist drew inspiration from like tons of different sources. You see hints of like surrealism with its dreamlike quality, abstract expressionism with its emphasis on emotion and gesture, and even echoes of like those Eastern ink painting traditions you mentioned. It's like this fusion of visual languages, all converging to express, I don't know, this universal human experience.
The search for meaning. For peace within chaos.
Exactly. And Venezia, with its like refusal to give any easy answers, right? It kind of invites us to engage with that search, but on our own terms.
It's like it's holding up a mirror. It's asking, how do you deal with life's tangled mess?
Yeah.
Are you clinging to the edge of the boat in that stormy sea? Or are you learning to ride the waves? And speaking of riding waves, that brings me to another point from that YouTube transcript that really stood out to me.
So the transcript, it talked about how Venezia how it could be like this visual metaphor for the creative process itself. So those swirling lines, they could be all those initial ideas, that first burst of creative energy, which can like feel almost chaotic at first.
Yeah, I get that. Totally. I can definitely relate to like that overwhelming feeling when you're starting a new project. Like
Yeah.
staring into the void, not knowing where to even start.
Exactly. And it's interesting how the lithograph, like, it doesn't shy away from that initial chaos, right? It's almost like it's saying, lean into it. Don't be afraid of the mess. That's where the magic happens.
Instead of trying to, I don't know, force those lines, those initial ideas into some neat and tidy form right away.
Exactly. Yeah, it's about trusting the process, allowing the ideas to flow, to collide, to transform. It's in that space of creative chaos that new connections emerge, right? Unexpected solutions arise.
That reminds me of something I read about the I Ching, how it like emphasizes the importance of embracing change, of not getting stuck in those rigid patterns. It's all about finding that dynamic equilibrium between yin and yang,
Yeah.
between creation and destruction.
Exactly. It's that like dance between those opposing forces that pushes the creative process forward. And Venezia captures that beautifully, I think. Like those dense areas where the lines converge, they could represent like moments of focus, of clarity, of giving shape to those initial ideas. And then the open spaces, they could represent those pauses, those moments of reflection where we step back and let the work breathe.
So it's not just about embracing chaos, but also recognizing those moments of stillness, those points of clarity that emerge from the chaos.
Yeah, precisely. It's that interplay between the two that leads to true innovation, to like a deeper understanding of the work itself.
It strikes me that this whole idea of finding balance within chaos could apply to life in general, not just like creative pursuits.
Yeah. Absolutely. It's about accepting that life isn't always going to be, neat and tidy. There's going to be moments of uncertainty, unexpected challenges, feeling lost in this sea of possibilities. But it's in those moments that we have the opportunity to tap into our like inner resilience, our creative problem-solving abilities.
Like navigating that stormy sea we were talking about earlier. Instead of, panicking and clinging to a boat, we can learn to adjust our sails, to ride the waves, to find a sense of equilibrium even in the middle of all the turbulence.
And that brings us to another point the transcript highlighted, the power of ambiguity. So, Venezia, it doesn't offer, like, these easy answers. It doesn't tell us what to think or feel, right? It invites us to engage with it on our own terms, to find our own meaning in those swirling lines.
It's funny. In a world where we're, like, constantly bombarded by information, everyone's got an opinion, everyone's got a solution, it's kind of refreshing to come across something that just embraces ambiguity. It's like a breath of fresh air.
That's nice.
Speaking of breath, the transcript actually talked about the breath as a way to understand this piece.
Oh, yeah. It pointed out how those swirling lines, always moving, they could be seen as like a visual representation of the breath, that constant ebb and flow, that rhythm of expansion and contraction. It like mirrors the essence of life itself.
It's like the artwork is reminding us to just breathe.
Yeah.
To connect with that like primal rhythm that's inside each of us.
Yeah, exactly. And in doing so, find a sense of grounding, a sense of presence. Even in the chaos and uncertainty of everything that's going on around us, it's a practice we can like carry with us, beyond just looking at this lithograph.
So it's not just about looking at the artwork, but about incorporating its message, its energy into our like daily lives, finding those moments of stillness, of connection with our breath, to anchor ourselves amidst the, ever-changing tides of life.
Exactly. And that brings us to another fascinating aspect highlighted in the transcript.
The transcript talked about how those swirling lines in Venezia, they don't just represent chaos or energy, but also a kind of journey.
Yeah. And it suggested that those lines could even be seen as like a visual metaphor for our own breath.
Oh, wow. That's interesting. So our breath constantly moving, ebbing and flowing. It's like a reminder that life itself is this continuous process, not like a fixed destination.
Exactly. And it's like Venezia is encouraging us to like tune into that rhythm, that natural cycle of expansion and contraction, to find that sense of grounding, amidst all the swirling lines of our own lives.
Okay, I see what you mean. So instead of getting swept away by every wave that comes along, we can find that still point within ourselves, that place of inner peace, right? Even when everything around us feels turbulent.
Yeah, exactly. And it's from that place of centeredness, that place of connection with our breath, that we can really like appreciate the beauty and complexity of the journey without getting, too fixated on the destination.
I don't know, as we've been talking, it struck me that Venezia, it's not just a piece you glance at and move on.
Yeah.
It's something you have to like sit with, let those lines just wash over you.
It does. It definitely invites contemplation. And maybe that's like part of its power. It doesn't offer these easy answers or like try to tell you what to think or how to feel. Instead, it invites us to, engage with it on a deeper level, to find our own meaning within those swirling forms.
It's almost like a meditation then, like a visual mantra. That helps us tap into a different way of seeing.
Yeah. And in a world that often feels so rushed and overwhelming, right? That invitation to just slow down, to contemplate, to connect with something bigger than ourselves. I mean, that's incredibly valuable.
Totally. So as we wrap up our deep dive into Venezia, I'm left with this feeling of, I don't know, possibility. Like even amidst all the chaos and uncertainty, there's still beauty to be found, meaning to be made. It's not just handed to us, right? It's something we have to actively create, cultivate.
I love that. Beautifully put. It's like Venezia is reminding us we have that power to shape our own experiences, to find our own meaning, even amidst all the swirling lines of life.
Yeah. It's a pretty empowering message, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. It reminds us that we don't have to be like these passive observers in our own lives. We can be active participants, creators, even in the middle of all the chaos. And I think that's a beautiful thing.
It is. It really is. So to everyone listening, as you go about your day today, maybe you'll look at the world a little differently. Maybe you'll notice the play of light and shadow, the way the wind moves through the trees, the rhythm of your own breath. And maybe, just maybe, you'll find yourself embracing the chaos a little more, trusting that even when things are uncertain, there's always potential for beauty, for meaning, for something truly extraordinary to emerge.
That's a wonderful thought to end on. Embrace the chaos, find the beauty, and trust the journey.